concerned, I mean, that's really only an aspirational thing. If you're just asking me straight up, I don't think the guy should play, period. I just don't see much value that he's got that can't be better served by some of the other guys on that roster.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a scenario where, excuse me, where he could, off the bench, just be a spot-up shooter, like a spot-up 4, a stretch 4 on some teams. But right now, I would rather have almost everyone on the Grizzlies playing ahead of him. Like Dylan Brooks, Wayne Selden, Omri Caspi, Kyle Anderson are all much better than Chandler Parsons. So, like, do you think this injury now is the permission for JB Bickerstaff and the coaching staff to be like, all right, finally, even if he comes back and gets medically cleared, we're not going to play him?
Well, I think part of the complication, too, is that JB and Chandler have a really good relationship. I mean, they're very close. They were close in Houston. They got to know each other there, and then as part of JB coming over with Fizdale's staff. And, they're tight. I don't think that that's necessarily prejudicing JB's evaluation of Chandler, but I do think he has a soft spot in his heart for the guy and would really like to give him every opportunity to succeed. So that's going to complicate things just a little bit. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you want to play him as a 4, those minutes are better served if Jaren Jackson can stay out there and stop fouling and play alongside Mark. And then when Jaren's playing the 5, I think Kyle Anderson is better served to play those minutes for you long term for your development. He's 24 and he's having a tough time adjusting to his role, whatever it is right now with the Grizzlies. That would be a little more surety in what he does. I'd rather see him play those minutes. I'd rather even see them, go extremely small and, try playing, Dylan Brooks or Wayne Selden down, really far down, and see where that takes you, depending on what the scenario is, because teams are really doing that. Now, you got to fix the rebounding situation, and that's going to come. But the personnel that are on the squad right now that you're not going to fix the rebounding with those guys. Those guys, name me, Keith. You're a basketball guy.
Yeah.
Name me an above average rebounder on the Grizzlies team. Any, just one for their position.
Marc Gasol's good at boxing out.
That's not the same thing. I'm talking...
Kyle Anderson is the only guy who rebounds, I think, above his weight, if you will, or above. But if he's playing a 4, obviously no. If he's playing a wing or like a guard spot,
right.
Yeah.
Ivan Rabb is about the only guy that has and he's not strong, but Ivan Rabb has that Zebo gene where he can kind of positionally get to a spot and get a ball. And you saw that in the Phoenix game when he played and grabbed like 5 rebounds in 5 minutes. I mean, he has that thing, but can you play him in a space role where he's going to have to get out there and fire from deep? He hasn't attempted a 3 in his career. And I think he could, he's attempted some long too. So I think he could do it, but he hasn't proven that yet. I think his inclusion in the lineup makes things a little awkward, but apart from him, nobody else is even an above average rebounder. Some are not even an average rebounding group. So I don't know how you fix that problem. That's tough.
Yeah. After the first game against the Pacers, I was like staring at NBA rosters, just thinking things like, you think Kenneth Fareed could get bought out? Like, what, we got to find someone like Quincy Acey. He's not in the league.
Yeah.
I feel like Quincy Acey could grab some.
Get Outlaw back. He's got it, right? He's still doing something, right?
Exactly. So yeah, I look at these lineups, and I think my takeaway from the first 5 games is actually all coaching related, where I've lost all optimism in JB Bickerstaff, whatever they were selling me, like, we don't need to do a coaching search. We have our guy right here. JB Bickerstaff, because it seemed like the complete grasping at straws of the lineup, the fact that they played Chandler Parsons again, like out of position too much, the fact that we like kind of rode Shelvin Mack and Garrett Temple into the ground in a few losses, where I understand like they're decent to good players, but I don't want to see those guys both on the court together for like 10 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. That feels weird to me. But I mean, Garrett Temple, obviously went off for that 30-point game against the Hawks, which I feel like, again, as Grizzlies fans, we're going to be paying for that for like half of the season, where they're like, "Oh, this guy can hit 6 threes in a game." Like, let's just
like when Tony Allen hits that first three, it's all over. Then you're in for a world of hurt.
And I got to give credit to Shelvin Mack for being awesome down the stretch in Utah with the one game that's kind of the nice win on the Grizzlies resume. But I still want to see, like, I don't know. I want to go down. If the ship goes down, I want to go down with the guys who I think are going to be on the Grizzlies for a couple years. If that's Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, maybe not Wayne Selden, but I'd still rather see him play. So of these lineups, I've been encouraged, I guess, the last couple games because I feel like the rotations make more sense, and it's not a good sign that the rotations make sense because Chandler Parsons and JaMychal Green are missing due to injury. Like, they're not overcoming those obstacles. For me, we removed 2 of the things that made the lineups confusing. But like, I really like any bench lineup that has Dylan Brooks, Wayne Selden, Omri Caspi, or Kyle Anderson. Any of those 4 guys being 2 through 4, I kind of love if they're bookended with either Jaren Jackson and Marc Gasol at the center, and then Mike Conley at the 1. I think those are awesome, but then they get away from that still, and that's kind of bugging me. So, what are your favorite lineup combinations that you've seen so far?
Well, I mean, again, this is where there's a tension with this group, and I've talked a lot about it in the lead up to the season, and you're seeing it already, where you have 2 extremely good faces of the franchise, veteran guys, Mark and Mike, and they want to win. They don't really want to screw around with rebuilding or anything like that. That's not them. You have a coach in JB Bickerstaff who wants to win. They're trying to push organizationally, for the playoffs. But the thing that would be best serving for them long term would be to start to develop more of these younger guys and to find a little more youth in the lineup. And that's where, Shelvin Mack, again, it's hard to believe that Andrew Harrison is in witness protection, but he is. He's just gone.
I can't even talk about. I'm sorry. I can't even talk about Andrew Harrison. I'm so sad. But keep going.
And what really would have been sad is I'm sitting there courtside on Saturday watching, and when Andrew Harrison checks in, his body language would have just been one long string of profanity when he came into the game. It was you will not see a more irritated performance from a player. The look on his face was like, I can't believe I got to do this crap. This is ridiculous. You put me in the garbage time in the sun. It's been a weird thing. And so I can only chalk that up to the desire to win now, and thinking that Shelvin Mack, a veteran presence, et cetera, is better served. He's got a better grasp of the new offensive system. I guess that's where you go with, but the lineups to me that have been the best have involved, typically, other than the starting, lineup now where, Garrett Temple and Kyle Anderson are in, and Jaren Jackson as well. Other than the starting line, which is pretty good. I think Dylan Brooks has made a real huge jump. He was kind of out of the mix early in the season and first 2 games was just kind of, it was weird. He didn't seem like he was mentally there because I think he lost his minutes and it was a bit of an adjustment to playing. I talked to him before the game Saturday for a while, and, he said, this is kind of the real NBA now, is what he said. Because it is, last year was not real. I don't know what that was, but he was playing by default. Now he's playing for real and he's having to earn some minutes, and that's a different adjustment for him. I like him and Wayne Selden out there. I'm with you. I think both those guys together. I think Selden played really well. Mm-hmm. I've liked what I've seen from Selden thus far on both ends of the floor. So those 2 guys together are interesting. And I like those guys actually, as much as it pains me to say it. And I love Kyle Anderson. I was a big proponent, but it has not worked for him right now. So I like those 2 guys alongside Mark and Jaren at the moment. And I want to see Kyle more as the 4, and I want to see him get more opportunity with the ball in his hands. I talked to a lot of the coaches in the preseason and training camp about that very subject, and I was assured that was going to happen, and it really hasn't happened yet. I think his role, he said it, he's more comfortable with the ball in his hand, but how often has he really been able to do that this year? He's not a spot shooter. He's not a stand in the corner guy. You're not going to he's a 32% 3-point shooter, and that's probably being generous. That's not what you're going to get from him. If you want value from him, he's got to let him be a facilitator. And so, I think those are the lineups that I want to see. I want to see him with the chance to be the primary facilitator and let Mike come off the ball, let Dylan come off the ball, let Wayne Selden come off the ball, Mark. I think that could be a pretty dynamic group in as much as any Grizzly group can be dynamic.
Yeah, I want to see Kyle Anderson get a lot more rope or freedom to do what he can do. I know he's missed a ton of like easy shots. It's actually been, I find it really endearing. He's missed like 6
he's trying very hard.
4-foot shots. I reached out to some Spurs people. They didn't hit me back. I tweeted him this morning. I was like, does Kyle Anderson, is he real bad at layups and like floaters? Or is it just a funny ghost of Tony Allen has taken over him for his first few games? But it seems like it's funny going back to the thing about like the win now stuff. Like the win now, I feel like this is the trap that some fans get into, but I don't want to see my coaches get into it, where if you've seen a guy hit like a pull-up jumper, you're like, oh, that guy's good. Like Marshawn Brooks, he's pretty good. Or Shelvin Mack, he's been around. Like, I understand those, like Shelvin Mack and Garrett Temple have more experience in the NBA, but for me, a win-now move looking at an 82-game season is playing guys who are almost as good but are younger and have room to grow and higher ceilings as players, where I think Dylan Brooks and Wayne Selden have higher ceilings. Like maybe they don't end up being as good as those guys, but it seems like those guys with their younger athleticism and maybe making more plays and running down loose balls, like that could be like a more win now move. And it's the same thing with like Caspi. I feel like Caspi has been an unsung, like really impressive cog in all their games.
Absolutely.
I was furious in the Kings game when like he had an incredible first half and then doesn't play again. And he's another guy where it's like, I feel like reading the room on Twitter, it seems like people are like, why do we sign Omri Caspi? Because his jump shot is goofy, but he's played great defense. He makes incredible entry passes to Jaren Jackson and Marc Gasol. And like, it just seems like he's the guy who I want to see more playing time, because I feel like he might actually be an above average-ish rebounder. I mean, I guess he's just for a small 3, not for a 4.
Yeah, he's got the institutional knowledge, and he's doing stuff for the Grizzlies. I mean, that shot really, wasn't a big part of what he did for the Warriors.
Right.
And so I think he's gotten his role's a little bit different. But you cannot help but learn and grow when you're in that kind of an organization and doing what he did. That stuff matters, and it's I think if you're trying, especially if you're, the Grizzlies and your JB Bickerstaff, and you're trying to incorporate new principles of a collective offense, read-based, that kind of stuff, where you're really like getting those sorts of concepts involved, that's all well and good. But you got to have guys that can actually buy into that and know what that is. And there's not very many of those around the Grizzlies, and he's one of them, where he understands like that whole, he gets the collective, he gets that group. Those guys, say what you will about the Warriors, but they have managed to, for the most part, keep individual egos down to a low enough level where they can all work and work well. Well, that helps. The Grizzlies aren't a real ego-driven team, but they are a team that is going to have to try to find a way to incorporate more in different guys. I think he can do that. You see, he kind of just, some guys they just kind of like grease. They just like oil out there. They just sort of slide right in, and they just lubricate the proceedings, so to speak. And Omri is a lubricant out there, and that sounds far dirtier than I intended it to, and I apologize to everybody listening for that. But that is not what I meant. But it does. He makes everything smoother and slide a little better. It reminds me of, side note here, I was talking to the Grizzlies, one of the staff members of the PR staff after the game Saturday. They used an excellent grade of paper for the box score. It was nice. It was almost like cardstock. It was and I described it as slick and thick, which became a bit of a problem for me later on. It's some people don't like to hear that, but I loved it personally as a designation. So Omri is, I call him, he's not that thick, but he is pretty slick. So we'll give him that.
He very small sample size, far and away the best Grizzly as far as net rating and on-off net rating. They're He's killing it out there, and I'm worried he's going to lose his time.
To be fair, though, hang on. To be fair, he's played only against some miserably terrible bench units, pretty much. I mean,
well, sure.
The Suns bench unit the other night, the Grizzlies, it was laughable. Dylan Brooks was plus 26 in 9 minutes because they were so bad. So that's going to skew your net rating a little bit, just because